Oh, okay, okay.
I'm sorry. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Tequila Smith. I'm CEO and Principal Consultant of Chemist Educational Services, and I want to welcome you to our Cupcakes and Convos. So, Cupcakes and Convos is a program of our STEM Port program, which is a program for parents that provides them with resources to help their child's STEM educational experiences. And our Cupcakes and Convos is a way for us to build community among parents so we can talk about strategies for your child's STEM academic achievement and enrichment. And so, without further ado, we're bringing guests this time. And our first guest is, I have so called her my STEM sister. That I'm like, and TK, but I want to say your name right. Talebech, correct?
Yeah, Tavali, that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
We were my friend and I were just talking about people that have nicknames, and you're like, that ain't the name on the birth certificate. What is their real name again? Um, I guess it's Miss Talebech Shipp, TK the Chemist. And one of the reasons I am bringing her on in our topic is tutorial support. So STEM is one of those things that a lot of kids feel like they can't do well because they need help, right? It's harder. It's not like some subject we just read and regurgitate. Like you have to learn the information, concepts, build upon each other. And so you're going to need support. But that's something that happens no matter what. But in this pandemic, where a lot of us are doing virtual learning or some type of hybrid, you know, you may not have access to the same resource that you have. You may realize like, oh, I am not smarter than a fifth grader. I can't help my kids with their stuff. And, it's no reason for you to go alone. It's no reason for your child to struggle. And that's why we are discussing the importance of tutorial support. So, bringing to lead, Tabali, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, my STEM sister.
It's okay, honey.
It's so funny. Like now I feel like now I'm gonna call her a real name all the time because now I'm gonna like TK and I want to introduce people a proper name. Um, she is a professor. She has her website. She makes STEM curriculum. She has STEM kits. And so, and she's a fellow chemistry professor and an HBU alumni. We're representing our HBCU today to talk about that. And she's a parent. And so she knows how to support students, how to support her own children, because there's no need for your children not to do well when you can just find a little support for them and yourself, right? And so welcome so much. And my first question is, how are you doing? We are in month, 8 of the pandemic.
Who's counting?
And I'm sure that your life as a parent, although your children are in college, right? And an educator has shifted so much over these past few months.
Yes. Well, first, let me say thank you so much for inviting me on your platform, Tequila. That really means a lot. Because let me tell you, during this time period, so many people are stressing out. Educators are stressing out. Kids are stressing out. Parents are stressing. So I appreciate the fact that you want to allow my expertise to come on your platform to share some of the strategies that I've used in my past and even now during this time period. It's been tough. I will say a lot of kids are having a hard time, even though they're tech savvy. They're having a struggle period because they're getting the demands of their teachers as well as their parents to still excel with limited resources. In my area, a lot of kids don't have internet access. So can you imagine, you want them to do all this schoolwork, but you don't provide them with Wi-Fi connections. A lot of our children are not prepared. So we talk about this thing called the digital divide. Mm-hmm. You can give them all this work online, but if I don't have an internet or if there are too many people in my house that need to get online, I'm still behind the 8 ball. So whether we're in class with our kids or, doing this virtually, there's still a battle. There's still a battle.
And I've even seen another conversation somewhere where they were saying that having enough devices if you have multiple children, right? So if you aren't at a school district where kids are given that one-to-one device, right?
Right.
I saw this clip on Instagram where a parent had 7 children. And they were able to separate them because each of them had their own device. But I didn't even think about the digital divide in areas where they don't have internet, because I've always lived in the metropolitan area, so we've never had that option. So, I've always had access as long as I could because, I grew up in the age of dial-up when I was in
Right. Right. We on that age with that one.
Right.
Yes. Well, some of the schools have gotten like school buses where they call them like the Wi-Fi bus, where the children can go and sit or somewhere nearby. Now, let me tell you, so I teach college students, by day, but then I also mentor kids in the evening time. And let me tell you what I have found. You have some children whose parents are gone to work during the day. So these kids are still having to try to figure out, where can I get internet connection? And there was a story that I posted when this Rona stuff first happened, where these kids were sitting outside of a Taco Bell doing their homework because they were getting the Wi-Fi. And then, of course, DSS was called, the police were called. It's like, but you all didn't think of this thing through. There are children.
Yeah, I saw that story too. And the school district gave them a hotspot after, but I'm like, so it had to take the kids going to national news? Like, you didn't think the kids would need a hotspot before? So it wasn't even a issue of them not having hotspots, just not even thinking to give it to the kids, right?
Exactly. And let me tell you, the other thing they were doing in our area, they were telling all these parents, oh, your children are going to get free Wi-Fi until the end of the school year. Well, here's a trick. You got to sign up for the cable service. We won't call them people's names because we don't want to give them any support. But they were tricking parents, telling them, look, we'll give you free Wi-Fi, but you just got to get, our internet, our cable access in order to get it. Well, I don't want to be on
Isn't cable more expensive than Wi-Fi?
Exactly. But I think what they were trying to do is get them to purchase another service while we give you another free thing. Right. I don't have time to watch TV for luxury. So why would I want to have my children getting this HBO and all this other stuff just to get free Wi-Fi? That didn't make sense. So that was the other free
Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
So let's have this question of, I guess, the first thing to address the digital divide, right? Mm-hmm. So if you are a parent that, does not have good internet access at home, doesn't have internet access in your home for whatever reason, don't have enough devices, what support is out there to help your kids with their virtual learning, remote instruction?
Yes, very good question. So what I have found is that some of the schools are working more towards getting the children to have the Wi-Fi devices that they can actually take home now. But that's only prevalent in a lot of I would say, communities where they know there's a bigger need. Because we also have to keep in mind that we have kids that stay in rural areas where they're in like rural communities that they don't have those towers to give them that Wi-Fi connection. So you're talking about tree interference. So the schools are working harder now to figure out how can we still help our kids get what they need. So they're giving them hotspots that they can connect to their computer so they can get that access. But then there are still places that kids can still go. The schools are working better now to help them out. But here again, they're not telling the whole side of the story. Luckily, my daughter, has a laptop, but there were cases where they told the kids, you cannot bring your own laptop to school. And if you did not get one of ours when school was happening back in March when we had Corona first happened, then you can't get a computer. okay, if I have one from home, why can't I just bring that one to school? When they were going back to school. So there are people who are working in the community to allow people to donate these laptops, donate a Chromebook, donate, because they're now running out of those resources. And my question, and my question to a lot of the schools is, if each year schools get like anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 per child as their educational stipend. Now, this is not going to the kids individually, but it's going to the schools on behalf of those children. Now, they haven't used the schools in so long, so where's that extra money going? So my thing is, why not make sure that each child has their resources, because they're not using the school in its totality. So where's the extra money going? It's not like we've had them in the building in 8 months or so. Where is that money going? And I think that they should be giving parents a stipend to purchase a laptop. I mean, an inexpensive one.
Because they're young, so you don't need to have a kid that need $1,000 laptop. They can find a $200-$300 Chromebook, and which brings it to the question in how important is access to technology in helping kids learn?
Very
even
important.
if it's just a cell phone.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up about the cell phone. So I teach college students, and a lot of them had complained, Ms. Shipp, if we're getting these worksheets that you want us to do, I don't have a printer at home. What can I do? Because the campus is closed. Like, I can't even go on campus as a teacher to say, hey, I need some supplies to do this online thing. So what they're telling us is, hey, your students are just going to have to make the best with what they got. There's some grant money available to our students, but they have to meet those requirements. But my thing is, if you know that you all were not opening up school for these students, even on the collegiate level, why didn't you give them a budget? Let's say a stipend of, let's say $50 to get them a printer. They have printers at Walmart, Kmart, or not Kmart, but places that they can get them inexpensively than to pay to go to Staples somewhere to print off all these
Which
copies.
is expensive.
Yes, when you have multiple classes. I mean, I've tried to make my worksheets digitized where they can, still type. But when you're talking about chemistry, you were a chemical engineering major. A lot of our things are done problem solving. And like, I have a tablet that I can show my students and how to do the problems on the screen. But if my students are having to copy the notes as I'm teaching them online, they don't have access to a printer to print the worksheets off. So they can't not do it. But I tell them, just, write your notes on the worksheet, on your paper. And then if you have an option at work to print them off without getting in trouble, do that. But I just say, make a way to accommodate for those things. But there's a lot of unanswered questions that wasn't thought of. I know my daughter is taking a ceramics class, but her teacher told her, for those kids that don't come back to school, we're going to give you all busy work. So imagine ceramics, hands-on, you're making sculptures, you're making model clay stuff. Who wants to do book work when you can just come to school for that 1 day or 2 days and make the model? So there are a lot of teachers who are far behind on that technology too. You have teachers who don't want to learn the new technology skills. So they're doing a disservice to their students. I make sure that I take part in those resources. Every time there's a professional development opportunity, I'm learning as much as I can so I can pass those skills on to my students, because they should not be penalized because I don't want to learn how to do it. You got to embrace technology. You got to embrace the times.
That's good. So that's for parents and educators, right? We all have to do it. I mean, even me adjusting to learning the different event-based platforms, right? So I could still do what I need to do. So the question I have for parents that you can answer for parents is, how do I identify when my child is struggling with something? Like, what are some indicators? What questions do I need to ask? What behaviors do I observe in my children to know if they are struggling in something?
Good question. My first thing would be to observe how they're interacting with the online platform, because I know a lot of children are used to doing hands-on, particularly our little people. You know, they love to touch, feel, hug, and all of that. And so when you think about how our children are learning in this digital aspect, when we always say, stay off these laptops, stay off the computers, stay off these cell phones, well, now we're letting them get on them because they have no choice. As a parent, I would see how are they able to maintain learning through this way, and can they transpose it on their worksheets? So however these parents or these teachers are teaching them, are you watching what they do? Are you also providing supplemental material? Because here's the thing, the teachers can't do it all by themselves. Teachers have to work in partnership with the parents. All those emails that teachers are sending out, read them, respond back to the teacher. And if you see that your child is missing out on certain skill sets, you've got to step in and get those resources, because a lot of our children are often behind because their parents are too tired to do it themselves. Speaking from experience, when I had my kids that were in school, if there was something that couldn't do, like pre-cal, for instance, because it's been 20 some years, I hired a tutor. I'm not going to sit here and struggle with them and try to figure it out. But I know parents don't all have the same, funding that like I do. But I make a sacrifice. Parents, we have to make sacrifices. If you know that your child is struggling, even if they can't get it with their regular teacher, my recommendation is that you sought out other people. Maybe there's a teenager in the community that can help. Use that economical resource from a teenager. I know you don't want people coming into your homes, but these kids know how to use a laptop, and they know how to get onto these phones and FaceTime each other. Parents, one of the things I could also say is just being an advocate for your child. And even though they're getting the work and you see them interacting with their teachers, have them see if they can reteach the material to you. Now, if they're little people like first, second, and third graders, you can kind of go through their work with them. And it helps the teachers for you to reinforce that material. And it's okay. Yeah, they were online, 4 hours a day, but give them that break in the afternoon to play a game and see what they can tell you from what they learned today with Miss Johnson or whatever.
So you brought up games. Are games a good way for kids to reinforce concepts, or maybe sometimes it's not like the kids don't understand the concept, but I'm not an educator, but their modality of learning is different. So can games be a good tool to help kids that are struggling to learn concepts or reinforce concepts?
Oh, yes. Let me tell you, oftentimes kids learn by doing. Like, I can show you this stuff all day, but the moment you start making it fun for them, putting a little tune to it and singing, kids actually remember. Like, I don't understand why so many teachers emphasize rote memory. Rote memory means I want you to learn the first 40 elements on the periodic table. You don't understand why you learn them. You just told learn the first 40. Well, if you make it fun for them, where you give them interesting things that target those concepts, they'll digest the material a lot better. It's kind of like if I tell you that we're going to learn the bones of the human body. I mean, I can show you the bone, but I need you now to touch that bone. And so you can make a reference of, okay, this is the femur, touching it so you can understand and process it. Games are very helpful. I've seen so many teachers all across the country taking their lessons and adding them to the latest song. They're using Cardi B to help them remember math skills. They're using all of these songs that we may feel are inappropriate. They're remixing them to make them better. So I think if teachers have time for that creativity and they can apply the music to the learning process, these kids are going to get it. They're going to learn, because you have now a physical thing that you're doing to help you remember it, not just writing it down, but you're writing it and doing it.
So that brings me to my next question. So STEM, like you said, is a lot about doing it, right? And so what are ways that we can have the kids do more, because like you said, part of their like understanding may be because they can't sit and lecture or can't be taught just to memorize it. So how does doing it, and what things can we engage them in to do it, to really make sure that, before you spend money on a tutor, right? Like it could be a matter of, let me have them do an experiment, or let me give them some paper and let them do it, on pencil and paper, or let me get manipulatives for math. So what are some ways that, I guess, for example, we can take STEM out of the textbook, right? Because that may be some of the barriers for the kids and their understanding, and help them do to reinforce campus, because that can be a way for us to know before we spend, the tutorial money on tutorial, where it just could be they need to just do it and see it, right? And like reading the book and textbooks aren't enough, or doing the homework aren't enough.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So there are so many different resources that these kids can actually get into that are free 99. If it's free, it's for me. So there are oftentimes websites that you can go to that you can use, but sometimes you have to have a parent set the account up, because, if you're under age, I think it's like under 13, then there are some other things you have to kind of go through to prove your age in order to get onto some of these websites, even though they're for children. So I recommend that they go to different websites that their teachers have provided for them as a resource. And you can easily Google math websites. I mean, there are so many games online for math, science, social studies, all these references and resources that our children need. Oftentimes, with those free resources, they even have them set up at the library. I remember back in the day, telling my age now, we didn't have a virtual tutor. We would call. I remember calling this man every day at the library. He would give us help. You had to visually see what he was saying, because we didn't have a computer where I could look at the problem that he's doing. I had to basically visualize what he was saying as I'm working the problem out. So a lot of libraries have free tutors. Parents, if you have access to a library card, they just probably need you to plug that information in. Utilize those free resources there. Some of the colleges may have a connection to some of the school systems where they're also giving free tutoring with some of the education majors. So that's also a good reference too that a lot of the parents can use. A lot of the churches, if we are in an area, if your parents are in an area where they can get references from their churches, they can use those resources too that are free. They often get college students or retired school teachers. So if you are able to be in physical contact, that's also another option. I'm always looking for something that's free or very minimal cost before I spend a lot of money. And I know a lot of the children that we're talking about often don't have those resources.
But you mentioned a great thing with the library, because I think about not only tutorial, but I also think about sometimes it's simple as finding another book than your textbook, right? Like how a whole nother author can do it. And even though some libraries may be closed, some are opening back up, some have book drop-offs, but what I've been doing maybe the past year or so is using the apps connected with my library card, and I can download ebooks and videos. And so those could be other resources that with their library card, they can log on to these apps provided by the library to find resources, especially if your library is still closed, right? You can go and find these other books. So we talked about the free resources. So say, the free resources still didn't work and my kid didn't get it and I have to write some checks. How do you select a quality tutor or tutorial service? How do you, make sure they're just not taking your money?
Right.
How much time should you give the tutorial before you have to move on it? Because sometimes it just could be a matter of there's not a connect between the kid and, like, as grown-ups, we just don't like some people and the chemistry ain't there. So that could also be a barrier
That's
between,
true. That's true.
your child and that tutorial. So what are things that, one, we can identify actually who is a good tutor? Like, how do we identify those things? And once we find that tutor, how do we know if it's working for your child?
Well, good question. So there are some resources out there. If they're offering like a trial period, like the first day, just to kind of get the taste of that tutor, that's one thing that you could probably do. See if they offer a free day. Can I get my child on with you for free just for one day to try it out? And if they don't have the free day that you can try, maybe at a smaller rate to kind of see if this is something that's going to work with me. You can also see if they have a reward system where if I refer another child to you, can I get my tutorial services for like half off? So sometimes you got to ask in order to know, because sometimes people don't advertise all of their freebies because they're trying to, get the people to pay. Yes. But sometimes you'd be surprised if you just ask those questions, you may find the answers to them. And then there are so many, I know a lot of teachers who are tutoring and they may be tapped out in terms of wanting to deal with your same child, because obviously if I need a tutor, maybe the teacher is not capable of, I don't want to say they're not capable, but maybe you just couldn't get it with them. So you have to
There's
hear
so many dynamics of why kids don't get it, right? And
right. Well,
although we want to say it's a bad teacher, you just never know, right? It could just be that the learning style, the voice, the accent, it could be a myriad of things why kids don't learn from adults. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And one thing that I have found is whenever people come to me to want to get help from me, I always tell them, go check out some of my YouTube videos that I've done, particularly with my chemistry students, because I have another chemistry website that I use, or not website, but a chemistry YouTube channel that I do tutoring on. And that way they can see my teaching style. Now, for me personally, I like to act silly when I'm doing, not because I know a lot of times people are already frustrated. And as parents, we want to know, is my child going to get the true benefit from you? Sometimes these places have a money back guarantee. If my child doesn't do X, Y, Z, can I get my money back? There are places that do charge a lot of money. However, some of those places are more like franchises. So they don't often give you what you may be looking for. And they're just having you kind of go through modules and all of those things to kind of waste time. And for parents who are trying to get their children the resources that they need, I would just say start small. Maybe have some of the kids in your neighborhood all get together with that high school kid. I'm telling you, when the money isn't there, you got to find a high school child that can help you. Because for my daughter,
kind of like the learning pods that are happening now, right? That parents are doing.
Right. And I know we do have to, have some precautions there. You still need to wear your mask if you're going to be sitting up in somebody else's house. Or hopefully this virtual thing can work for you, where you all can screen share and do all kinds of things that you still don't limit yourself to learning. Unfortunately, some things parents are just going to have to sacrifice. I deny myself so that my kids can have, and they will tell you, Mama don't get shoes, she don't get clothes, she don't do none of that, because I want to make sure that they have those skills that they need. Tutoring costs money, and if you want a good tutor, you may have to pay a pretty penny for that. But it's a sacrifice so that your child can be where they need to be. Now, because we are in this Rona period, I wrote down some little things using Rona as an acronym. Trying to be creative here. For Rona, for the R, I tell parents, read all of your emails and correspondences, because again, teachers are sending information out. They may even send a list of tutors that may help your child. They may even be that tutor, even though, you may want to go somewhere else. It's always a good thing to seek out help from someone else. Own your responsibilities. Parents, a lot of the stuff that our kids are doing, yeah, it may be a new way of learning, but you gotta own it. You gotta see what is it that your child isn't comprehending. And chances are, if you just sit down and listen to what they're saying, it could be something just so small that gives you that, oh, okay moment. And it doesn't have to be that you have to go hire a tutor. You could be that child's tutor, learning the information with them and helping them out. And most parents are at home with their kids now. So I feel that parents should now connect more with their child instead of putting it off on someone else. And then the end, never give up. Because I know a lot of parents are giving up right now. They're like, okay, my son still can't read. My daughter is still struggling with her spelling words. I just don't know what to do. And I always say, if you just tap out there, a lot of parents on Facebook, go to Facebook if you're on Facebook and ask, who knows someone, or maybe you have a high school child or a college student that's virtually home that can help me.
Like tap if you're in a parent group, tap the parent groups, right? Because I'm in a few parent groups, and they ask all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. The neighborhood watch group. If y'all have a neighborhood that has a thing of recommendations for somebody that can come in and clean your carpet, well, is there a recommendation for a tutor? Who do you all know that can help me?
And do one of your kids know? Do one of y'all know? Right?
Exactly.
Like, some help. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And then the A is advertise that you need help. See, a lot of parents know their child needs help, but they're ashamed that their child needs help. I'm like, look, I'm a chemistry person, but my kids didn't often want to learn it from me because I didn't have patience. I had the patience of Job for other people's kids that don't understand chemistry. But when it came to my kids, I was like, ugh. So I'm fussing and cussing because I know those are my kids. I can do that. But when it comes to somebody else's children, I have patience. So it's almost like, even as a parent, own up to the fact that you may not be able to help your child, and it's okay. But there are people out here who are waiting to help your child. You just got to open up your mouth and ask for the help.
Like the elders used to say, closed mouths don't get fed.
And
but also going back to knowing that you can't do everything for your child, right? And part of being a good parent is recognizing what you can do and what you need help with. Just the lesson that you're teaching your children with their schoolwork, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
So anything like wise words, wise advice, that Rona thing was good.
Thank you.
That you want to give parents overall with, what do you do to make sure your child succeeds in academic, in STEM, are engaging in things? Because, a little plug for you, your website has awesome STEM kits. So how do, some strategies you want to give parents for, enhancing their child's academic achievement, but also various, enrichment that gets them, enhances their things because they may not get enough hands-on STEM. We may not be able to safely go to science museums anymore, or, all those things.
Right.
So what are things that parents can do? Or even when we're able to go out, maybe you may not have the money because you're saving for vacation or your roof tour, what advice can you give to parents, to manage their child's STEM experience versus academic enrichment and enrichment activities?
Yes.
And exploring.
I'm glad you asked that question. One of the things that I've told my kids constantly, you got to see yourself as though you are, okay? You got to pretend as though you got this. And I tell my students this all the time. This may be hard right now, but guess what? At the end of this hardship, you're going to always be able to go through that door and say, I'm glad I got through this because I did not give up. Because I said you guys see yourself as though you are, I always tell parents, put pictures and images around them, affirmations. Even as adults, we need to tell ourselves, I know I can. Not I think, but I know And if you put those affirmations out, the moment you feel like you're on the struggle bus and that this is just not going to be for you, you got to start telling yourself over and over and over, I got this, I can do this. Giving these kids images, positive pictures about chemists, engineers, mathematicians, that kind of shows you, hey, we've been doing this since before time. You come from greatness. And I think it starts in the mind, and what you think about, you bring about. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you, think that you're going to be a mathematician, but then you're not putting in the work. Okay, because faith without works is what? Dead. You got to actually put in the work and do a little more. It may take Rashawn, a day to study at the last minute. But you, on the other hand, you have to study and put in that work every single day.
From the time the teacher introduced the concept, right?
Exactly. And I think a lot of our children just have to also realize, look, stop waiting until the last minute and stop making excuses, because you guys are at home. And teachers do assume that you have time. Unfortunately, they think you're all on the computer all day. But I also say, for parents who are wanting to help their kids, sit down with them and have a calendar that you can visually see. When is that math test due? When is that spelling test due? Put all those color coded. I color code everything. That way you'll know if you have 3 kids like how I have, keeping up with their schedules, because it is a lot. And when you have 7 teachers times 3 kids, that's a lot to remember. So I think that for parents to be organized, that's going to be very helpful, because the more organized you are, the less chaotic your child will be. And parents, stop doing the most while your babies are on these computers. If you know they're having class from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., don't be doing all this extra stuff in the background, distracting them. You got to really help the teachers help you help them. It's a partnership. So we can't all expect our teachers to do it all. And I'm not making excuses for my teacher friends, but what I do know is our jobs will be a lot easier if our parents help us help our scholars. So we got to work together and stop making excuses. What can we do to work together? And that's going to be the biggest thing. Yes.
That is good. And it's so funny because our guest last week was about organizing calendars, and I brought her on because we're friends as well. And she has a color coded calendar to manage her family. So she talks about organizations. Thank you so much. It's so great. And if people want to do your kids or find your YouTube, well, is there a YouTube channel only for college students?
No, so the other one is for kids. The other one is for the college kids. So
okay,
I do two separate channels. Yeah.
Okay, I can barely manage one, and
trust me, I understand.
And on your Instagram, you have things like questions and stuff, because sometimes I repost it. Lately, I've been lazy, but
it's a lot going on, honey. I understand.
So, how were people? Because I brought you twofold. You are a teacher, you are an educator, but it's National Chemistry Week, right? And so we're in the middle of STEM, and your expertise is chemistry. So people can find you on what, Instagram or Facebook, if their kids need help. Because sometimes it just be as simple as going to somebody's Instagram page, right? And getting some facts.
And I know a lot of parents, some parents aren't on Facebook, some parents aren't on Instagram, but if you do want to reach out to me, I am on Instagram at TK the Chemist. My website is mygemsforkids.com. So that's MYGEMS, the number 4, kids, KIDS.com. Or if you put My Gems in FORkids.com, it'll take you to my other website. So one is a store, and the other one is, all about My Gems and what we do and the services that we provide.
Well, thank you so much. You just gave us some great tips that are specific to us being in a pandemic, but some of those are transferable if parents, are in places where they have to send their kids back for in-person instructions. As well as when this is over and we're all back in in-person instructions. instruction. So thank you so much for making time to share your wisdom, and especially ways that we can save our coins while helping our kids, but also knowing like if you got to pay them coins, you may just have to, right?
That's right. Oh, and Tequila, before I forget, because that's you brought that up. There was a grant that was out there, but the deadline has passed. But they were giving the parents like $300 for their one child who qualified, and they often, I mean, they gave that to the kids and said, "Hey, I mean, to the parents, but you can, I think you can only do it for one child in your household." And I mean, that $300 may have stretched a lot for some parent that needed it.
Okay.
Dollar Tree has a plenty of flashcard manipulatives that you can create. So, I mean, parents, I don't want you all to use excuses for why your children can't succeed. If you Google or go to Teachers Pay Teachers, there's some free stuff on there that you can print off to help your child remember stuff. So you don't always have to spend money, just the time to look for resources. So thank you so much, Takiwa, for inviting me.
Thank you. We have to help each other and build this community and share our knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to help create some STEM scholars, right?
Thank
That
you.
follow our path and end up at one of our alma maters, majoring in STEM.
I gotta say, we couldn't have called this, y'all. She has on her FAMU shirt, and I have on my Aggie shirt. I didn't even know she was gonna wear her FAMU shirt. So this was divine.
Well, thank you so much. And everybody, we hope you enjoy our Cupcakes and Convos, and most importantly, learned a lot to help raise your STEM scholar.
Yes.
See you next time. Bye.